We have a next presentation from Perpetual Resources. Perpetual Resources is operating in South America on a number of lithium projects, quite an extensive portfolio, and the presentation to be delivered today is by the Executive Chairman, Mr. Julian Babarczy, who has been analysing and investing in mining companies for over 12 years. It's probably a lot longer than that, I guess, as Portfolio Manager for Regal Emerging Company Strategy. So therefore, I think he'd have a pretty good insight for a junior company's pathway to success. Looking forward to this one, Julian. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to everyone who's taken the opportunity to dial in. It's always very encouraging for us to tell our story. We've been through a period, I think, of being a little bit more quiet, but we feel like 2026 is a very, very big year for Perpetual. And really the thesis of what we're about as a company is about building a critical minerals platform across multiple Tier 1 jurisdictions. And so we've got quite high ambitions to grow the company over the course of this year, but we've got a number of foundation assets, which I'll touch on in this presentation, which really underpin, we think, good shareholder returns, which will augment over time with additional asset acquisitions. So just a disclaimer for you to read in your own time. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, Perpetual is exposed to a number of the most exciting critical minerals at the moment. This isn't a portfolio that we've built by accident. We've been very targeted in where we've focused. We've tried to find some of the best geological basins in the world, and we believe we've got assets now that reside in those that we have to do the work and prove up, but we've got a very strong platform initially to move forward with. So the critical minerals that we're focused on mostly are lithium, cesium, tungsten, and rare earths. And they're all ones that are very topical at the moment. So we're very much benefiting from the onshoring from a US perspective, or the ability for companies to remove China from many of the supply chains that they dominate. So we're very much looking to fill the hole in that. And we think, again, the assets we picked up and the geology that we picked up should lend ourselves to having a better chance than most of moving forward through to project definition and beyond. Some other interesting aspects of the company that we think are worth noting is that the directors are some of the largest shareholders of the company. So as a block, I think we're the largest shareholder. We think very much like shareholders when we run the company. We run the company very lean. We try and get the highest impact we can for the money that we spend. And I think we've done a pretty good job at limiting the share issues over the years and adding value for the company. As we've always done over the years, we'll look to augment the portfolio, and I'll touch on that a little further in the presentation, but we're always looking for better assets at the right price. We look at lots of assets all the time, and we're currently in discussions on a number, and if they pan out, we think they'll add a lot of value to shareholders as well. So again, just looking at our project pipeline. So what we're trying to do at Perpetual is build somewhat of a conveyor belt of projects at different stages of the exploration pipeline. We've got some very early stage projects in Brazil. They're on the left-hand side of the screen there. But the ones we're focused on mostly are those ones in the middle, and I'll talk about those. They are the Renaldino project, which is a lithium project, Igrejina, which is a lithium and cesium project, and then Raptor, which is our rare earth project. We also have a silica sand project in Western Australia, which we continue to optimise. We'll have some metallurgical test work that we're undertaking at the moment on that we expect in a couple of months' time. We believe there's substantial value within that project that's currently not reflected in the share price, and we hope to unlock that through optimising the met flow sheet as we move forward. So potentially some quite sizable outcomes on that in the next few months as well. But as I said, the focus of this presentation is on our Brazilian asset suite, and mostly the ones that we're looking to drill again later this year. So why Brazil? And one of the main reasons we went into Brazil, of course, is for the geology, and I'll explain elements of why we chose the area we've chosen on subsequent slides. But it's also a great place for a small explorer to do business. There's very low red tape. There's very, very good government support. We're in an area which has the benefit of having a number of spodumene mines within 5 to 10 kilometres, some of which are operating, and therefore we benefit from the infrastructure that they've already laid down and the supply chains that they've already put in place. So we think it's a great backdrop if we are to be successful in our discovery, and we think we're well on the path for that, that we'll have a great chance of commercialising our project either through production or a monetising event. So why the Lithium Valley? So as I said at the outset, we're trying to build positions in core jurisdictions, some of the best geology in the world and what we like to refer to as tier 1 jurisdictions. And we believe there's no better place to be looking for spodumene than in the Araçuai Valley, which is located in Minas Gerais in Brazil. Minas Gerais is the largest mining jurisdiction in Brazil. It's also, this valley accounts for about 85% of Brazilian spodumene production. So we're surrounded by highly successful mines. A couple of worth noting are the Sigma lithium operation. They're currently expanding to about 270,000 tonnes of spodumene. They've been in production for a couple of years now, right through the downturn, so they've weathered that quite well. And the reason they could do that is because they're in the bottom quartile on the cost curve. So what we find in Brazil is the geology is a bit different to what people are used to in Western Australia. Rather than the extremely large, pervasive single pegmatite bodies, what you find in this jurisdiction is a little bit more like the African experience. Smaller projects, 8 to 12 million tonnes, up to 20 million tonnes, and that tends to be the size of them. They tend to be pegmatite swarms rather than the very large pegmatite ore bodies you have in Western Australia. But what that means is that these projects are often easier to bring into production. Footprint is smaller. Most of them are DMS flow sheets, so the capital also is a lot lighter. And so the ability, if you find a project, to bring it into production in this jurisdiction, we believe is second to none. As I said before, we've got a number of other projects near us. CBL, which is a Brazilian private company, is currently producing spodumene and has done so for the last decade from an underground mine about 10 kilometres from our project. And there's another one owned by Atlas Lithium, which is a NASDAQ-listed company, which is currently at DFS phase and funding. So there's been a lot of activity in terms of production. There's been very limited exploration in this valley over the last couple of years, and we're proud to say that we were one of the few companies who continued to invest through the downturn. And so we feel like we're coming through into the upturn we're seeing now in lithium with a strong story to tell and a number of key catalysts that we'll hope to target later this year. So a very exciting area. And also for others who don't know, Pilbara Minerals is active in this area as well. They acquired Latin Resources in 2025, and they're also, this is one of their key growth areas as well. So we've been fortunate to get a good ground position. The area of our focus is these two bottom tenements here called the Igragina project and the Renaldino project. And they're interestingly in parts of the valley that are less explored. So we're undertaking genuine greenfields exploration. So this is a zoom in on the Igragina project. And I mentioned that we have pre-drilled this and we found quite an interesting ore body. We moved quite quickly after acquiring this asset in February of 2025, and we were drilling it by the middle of 2025. So we believe that's some of the fastest conversion from ownership to drilling for many of the juniors in the area. And what we did quite effectively was demonstrate that we're in a highly mineralized system. So I'll come to the next slide, which will show you some of the grades. We didn't necessarily find a lithium-rich pegmatite, so it appears we're slightly outside the lithium window at one of the key tenements at Morro Grande. But we are in an area that is very mineralized, and I guess effectively what we're searching for is that lithium window. We did find very, very strong cesium mineralization though. We have an outcropping pegmatite, which is ore-grade cesium and ore-grade lithium, and effectively all we did was drill underneath that in the initial phases. And so now we've gone back to basics and are doing some soil sampling programs and additional rock chipping, and that'll lead into a trenching program in the lead up to drilling middle of the year. So effectively what we've proven to date is that we have an active and highly mineralized LCT pegmatite system. The grades, as we can show on the next slide, intersections like 2 meters at north and 2.5% tin, cesium of almost 2% over a meter, and we've got grades of up to 17% in channel samples at surface. So as I said, we've got a very, very active LCT pegmatite system here, and really we're just vectoring in now on what we think will be the best grades and attempting to chase those subsurface as we move on. But we did drill we did undertake a very successful drill program mid last year. The outcome of that was that we delineated a pegmatite that was a couple 100 meters long, extending at depth and open in all directions. As I said, very high grades. And with the finalisation of the soil sampling and trenching program, we'll look to re-drill that around the middle of the year, and we've got high hopes for the Igragina project. Looking now at the Renaldino project, and this is a slightly earlier stage lithium project, which is about 5 kilometres south of Igragina. So we've so far undertaken stream sediment and rock chip sampling. We've delineated 4 broad areas of pegmatite trends. Some of the grades we're seeing at surface are exceptional and give us a lot of belief that we are in an area that will likely host some very, very strong mineralisation at depth. One of the key features of this, and one of the reasons we're so excited, is because if you look at all the subsurface geology understanding that we're getting for free by virtue of the artisanal workings in this project, they're just pervasive and extensive. So this is an area that's been artisanally mined for gemstones. They target the pegmatite systems, often of which are a distal to or within the lithium window. And the fact that we're seeing lithium at surface at such high grade and actually underground as well with our rock chip sampling program suggests that as we move towards drilling this in the middle of the year, we've got high hopes that we'll have some very strong intersections, and this could be what we think will be one of the next lithium projects in the valley. I did mention also that we're exposed to the rare earth complex as well. So we have some ground talking about Tier 1 jurisdictions in the Caldeira region of Brazil. This is the region that hosts Meteoric's 1.5 billion tonnes rare earth project. It also hosts Viridis's 500 million tonne rare earth project, and these are considered some of the best ionic absorption clay projects in the world. So we're only 10 to 20 kilometres from each of these projects, and we've undertaken some initial work that suggests we've got a comparable ore body host here, and we'll look to develop this project as we go through over the next 6 to 12 months as well. So we did undertake an initial auger sampling program, drilling down to about 8 to 12 metres only. All of the holes ended in mineralisation, and all were effectively comparable to what Meteoric and Viridis have encountered with their drill outs. So we've got examples of 5 metres at close to 6,000 total rare earth oxide, other extensions of 12 metres at 4,600 TREO. And importantly, we've got the rare earth assemblage, which is favoured, and that's very high NdPrs. So we've got north of 20% in virtually every hole, some holes up to 35 to 40%. We've then subsequently undertaken some initial metallurgical test work. And again, it's comparable to what the early metallurgical test work saw at both Viridis and Meteoric. So effectively what we're looking for with this project is to undertake additional work on the project to advance it, might potentially look to monetize the project. We don't believe we're getting any recognition in our share price for this, and so it's incumbent on us as directors to see how we can extract value for it. So we're very excited by our Raptor rare earth project, and we're looking at ways to realise value for that over the next 12 months. I mentioned why 2026 might be a good time to look at the company. We think we're pregnant with a lot of news flow. As I said earlier as well, we're one of the few companies who's been active in the Lithium Valley, exploring for critical minerals and lithium. So we're one of the few companies who'll be reporting news flow out of this area in the coming months. So after drilling the Igragina project and identifying the Morro Grande critical minerals pegmatite, we've then stepped back and we're taking a more systematic approach to the next phase of drilling. That means we've stepped back and done a very broad, expansive soil sampling program across both the Morro Grande and the Mauricio targets, which are within the Igragina tenement. There'll be a trenching program that will follow. We'll kick that off just after the rainy season, which finishes late this month or early April. And we expect that to be quite instructive, as that has potential to unearth pegmatite swarms and other distal pegmatite bodies that we currently haven't identified, but which some of the soil sampling signals suggest are present. And then that's all building into target refining and drilling in the mid-year. So we're looking to undertake a drill program or diamond drill program around mid-year, targeting both the Igragina and the Renaldino projects. Now, I did mention earlier as well that we have built this company through acquisition of projects, and we'll continue to do so. We're very disciplined in the way we look at our acquisition criteria, and we really only look at projects that we think can be bought at the right price with the right attributes. We're pleased to say that we're looking at a number at the moment that we think could add substantial shareholder value. And so all we'll say with regard to that is watch this space. We're looking at jurisdictions outside of Brazil, in other Tier 1 areas, which we think the market will reward at the moment. So again, we're quite excited about what's coming up for Perpetual in the year ahead. So just in summary, we think we've got a Tier 1 footprint in a number of these great jurisdictions, particularly in the critical mineral space. We're very leveraged to some of the key commodities like lithium, cesium, rare earths, and tungsten as well as one we're quite focused on. The fact that the board has strong alignment means that we run this company very much with a shareholder hat on. And as I've said a number of times, and I'll repeat finally, we think 2026 is potentially a very substantial year for us as we move to some really high impact catalysts in the coming months. So that's the end of the formal presentation. I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Thanks, Julian. you'd probably be able to answer better than most. The run on lithium was due to EV batteries. The current run on the lithium price is all about larger storage packages. How long is that market set to run for, and how large do you think it can be? Are we at the beginning, the middle, or maturing in that curve?
I'll probably preface the answer by saying I don't think anyone really knows, because the market, being the market, will always make fools of us all. But my view is that the rebound we're seeing at the moment is not so much about a driving up in demand, and you mentioned there's a transition to more of the stationary storage style demand, but I think demand is generally growing at a really comfortable pace. What we've seen is the classic signs of a bottom, that where the price blew off right up onto the top, it incentivized a lot of supply, and then the price crashed when that supply hit quite a small market. And then what you've seen is the classic signs of a bottom, which is a lot of supply coming out of the market, a freezing on a freezing on exploration spend, so the new mines aren't coming through. And now we're seeing a normalization event where the demand has kept chugging along quietly in the background, and the supply has been taken out. And then we've seen supply shocks like some of these mines in China, which have had to close for all sorts of reasons, and that's tightened the market unexpectedly. So we now actually see a market that's very balanced, probably with a skew to being undersupplied over the next couple of years, and therefore a propensity for the lithium, and specifically for us, the spodumene price, to trend up. Like all small markets, there'll be periods of volatility, but I think generally we're in the early to mid stages of the next uptrend, and a very exciting time for explorers like us.
Very encouraging, well answered, Julian. Thank you very much. You're in the right spot and the right commodity for that cycle. So thank you for your time today, and we look forward to hearing further from you.